My name is Jacob Adams. I'm a fitness and leadership coach. I help people just like you achieve more strength and fitness, more energy, clarity, and strategies for executing overall fulfillment and even meditation, self-acceptance. Have you ever struggled with inner doubt, insecurity, neuroses, things that you know don't feel good in your body, in your overall consciousness from head to toe? There's something that isn't right about the way you're feeling. You can't quite put your finger on it, but you know. Especially as we become adults, we tend to not blame others. We kind of know there's something not quite right with us, and we don't want to drink a beer or smoke a joint or do some of the traditional medications that we know can zap us right into a blissful state. Have you ever struggled with these insecurities, these doubts, this inner critic, beating yourself up, giving yourself shame, feeding doubts within yourself out of some sort of cyclical, sadistic, masochistic, you know? I know I've struggled with these things, these self-pities, these inner critics, these self-doubts in my life, kind of sprinkled throughout my life. There's not, 1 month where I just went to town on myself, doubting and things. I think with every new endeavor I've ever experienced, or every new goal I set for myself, there was doubts. There was insecurities and fears that maybe things weren't going to go as well as I thought I would want them to go. And I had to find some strength within myself to stay in the game, to push through that doubt, to maybe understand that, the worst case scenario might have to be handled if that was what needed to happen. And I've struggled with this my entire life to some degree. Again, I was never have been or am a neurotic mess. I'm making this video because what I find interesting is that no matter how much we've achieved, for example, I've passed some of the most complex standardized tests, whether it's a statistic test, business calculus test, reading tests, writing tests. I've written a book, I can figure things out. I'm a relatively smart individual, but I still have doubts. With Advocare, for example, the company that I work with in network marketing, I've reached a gold level PIN, which is a decent achievement considering that a small percentage of people actually do reach that. I've gone on a bodybuilding stage. I've lifted enormous amounts of weight. I have a standardized strength to my body, which I can move, 2 plates on an incline bench press, 225 or so, and wrap that out. And that was one of my goals. I've done yoga. I've gotten good at meditation. And, after so much of this, I listen to positive things. I don't watch horror movies. I'm not around negative people. And I understand personal growth. And I've even achieved good growth in my life. And I still have some doubts. After a certain amount of time, you begin to ask yourself, well, gee, when am I going to reach this golden era? When am I going to stop having as many downs, or have a lot less of them? Do we ever hit a coasting speed where we're really kind of invincible to doubts? Grant Cardone came out on Instagram the other day and he said, every day I still wake up anxious, insecure. This is a multi-millionaire, known around the globe to be very successful. And he's like, I still have these neuroses, these doubts, these insecurities. So I know that the answer to my first question is likely yes. Now, you may be a rare exception to which if you don't struggle with this at all, then by all means, please comment below. Let me know how you did it and let us know how we should take notes from you. Sincerely. For most of us though, there is a level of doubt that we have to manage. Where is this source? If scientifically speaking, we're living in the safest times in the world, in all of human history. The lifespan for humans is the longest it's ever been. We're able to connect at the speed of light with a cellular device on our hands and search the entire world. You might be watching this on your cellular device, and I'm coming to you from Texas. You might be in England, you might be in New York, you might be in California, you might be in Canada, Europe, etc., right? So what I'm saying is, if even through all of our successes, we still have doubts. And if you look at some of the most successful people, like Robin Williams, that committed suicide, and you start seeing there's some existential pattern, this existential crisis of sorts that is triggered when people don't have enough fulfillment as they reach the upper echelons of success, where the external world may seem fruitful beyond measure, but there's not enough wisdom within. There's not enough inner, deep, anchored, rooted fulfillment within. So I remember in 2012 when I was sitting at my desk and I found myself flying from Houston to Texas, and I was technically under definition of financial freedom. I was financially free, and I was in good shape, I had money in the bank, I had food, and I still was unfulfilled. This was the ultimate tell. You see, they say you hit rock bottom. And to me, it was almost like the opposite of a rock bottom. It was a mountain high. I was as high as I wanted to be within reason. And I started seeing how there was a little bit of a void within me. That's where I started beginning the search inward. I think that's the pivotal point that I wanted to bring to you today. And that's what we'll be delving into a little bit. The search inward. Now, this video, I'm going to look to keep to just about 10 more minutes from this point here. But in our remaining time together, I want to talk about the path inward and what I discovered. See, the path inward, what I started finding and what sort of led me the path inward was Yogananda's book, Man's Eternal Quest. And in it, he wrote, your time will come. And when it does, you'll ask yourself, did I make time to get to know him? And he was referring to God. Now, to me, that floored me like a ton of bricks. One of my fellow devotee brothers, Matt, who also is a yogi devotee, he said, that was your initiation. Interesting. I remember when he told me that, I was like, what? Now, I'm going really deep here for a second, but I'll bring it back to a more applicable position. I'm not asking you to be a yogi. This is my truth, and everybody has their own path and their own truth that they must discover within themselves. This is just my story, my truth, and what I discovered. But what I'm saying is that there I was, floored, and I started beginning this journey inward. I vowed that I would commit to meditation, and guess what? For 2 years, that vow went out the window. I continued in my cyclical behaviors of partying and a little bit of just loving time with my girlfriend at the time, and just sort of loving the overall feeling of this wondrous escapism, on the weekends, and working out hard on the weekdays and loving where my life was headed. I didn't think that I would find myself, having a void. I knew I believed in God. I knew I was praying. I knew I was maybe kind of trying to meditate a little bit, but I didn't have a deep fulfillment still. Well, here was 2014, 2 years later, and I finally submitted to committing to meditation. I finally said, let me go ahead and meditate. Now, it was because of Yogananda, my commitment I made in 2012, but also other mentors helped me sort of find that one of the deep desires in myself that I was covering with my overall agenda, my working out, my things to do, was that deep within me was some deep desire to connect with myself, some deep desire to connect with the mysticism of life, with God. And that same desire in 2012 showed itself, and here it was coming to the surface, this meditation that I needed to do. And that's why I wear these beads on all the time, is because I do practice meditation. And finally I meditated, and within 2 years, 3 years, these last 3 years, I began healing with studying Jungian psychology, meditation, understanding self-regulating behavior, understanding the need to detox, and all of these things that helped me sort of see a distance that helped me see a distance between the person that, was unfulfilled, and moments where I'm completely fulfilled and completely at bliss and completely self-accepting. And even through this now, even through these amazing successes of self-acceptance and insight and feeling more connected with God, even through all of these things, even big successes and bursts in my business, right? Even finally having, getting rid of things like codependency and things like this, these victories, and really making a lot of progress as a person. Even through this, I still have doubts. And so that's why today I wanted to take a moment to share with you some of the ways that we can identify the inner critic and sort of, make friends with our inner critic and know, okay, it's the inner critic, kind of treat it like more like a homeboy or something that lives within us that we can kind of like punch around and kind of, instead of it punching us and taking advantage of us, okay? Now, in the past, we pretty much would think that the world was the issue, right? It could never be us. Oh, let's be snarly out, that fucking guy, or that person doesn't know shit, or and we would blame all of our reactions, all the things that made us feel bad on someone else. It could never be our fault. And now with modern psychology, with all of the research, with all of the internet, with all of the unionizing of thought and the leadership and all of the higher level thinking skills that are trickling in through our society, we now know that it can be us. We can improve inwardly, not just our muscles, not just our external world, but our inner acceptances and our inner peace. And that's where we're headed now. So let's start with some of ideas so we can wrap this up. Well, the first thing I want you to think about is something that's said by James Hollis. Now, I'm going to read this to you, and then you can take what you want from it. We do not solve our problems, we outgrow them. The capacity of the psyche to enlarge is what makes healing possible. What was not activated by the parents, or was activated only in partial ways, must now be self-activated. James Hollis. The main thing that you want to take away from that is we outgrow our problems, and we must be the parent we never had. My dad did not ever step up to the plate and become a person of fitness, and I have to do that for myself. Nobody talked to me about the inner critic, and I have to research that and do that for myself. I'm being a parent to myself. I'm being a leader for myself and for the community. People like yourself that also want to improve, right? I have to be that parent. And there's no shame in that. There's no wrong in that. It's just the truth, right? My parents didn't tell me to stay away from negative people per se. They kind of did that one. That one they kind of did. And once you know your problems and your things and your stuff, just know that you can outgrow them. Make the main focus to outgrow them. My goal, what I will become is Diamond with Advocare by the end of the year, 2018. It's a very lofty goal. And sometimes I have doubts. And sometimes it almost seems surreal. And I think it's like, well, that's the amount of inner critic within me looking to stop me, looking to stall my growth. Versus, oh, that's reality. We can be seduced into believing this inner critic. But if we have a dream, and we have the strength to fight for it, and we have the clarity to go after it, and we have the faith to act on it, right? Then let us have the faith to accept that dream. Here's what you want to do. Identify the limiting beliefs. Ask, are they wrong? Can you intellectualize how they are wrong? And make friends with your inner critic and do what it's telling you not to do anyway. I kind of the video I made before this one, which was about the Advocare 180 challenge that's for $20,000 in this coming year, and it's designed to help people. I almost didn't do it. I had a few takes I didn't really like, and I was like, and the doubt started getting to me, but I did it anyway. And that's a champion. You gotta, just sort of sometimes block it out and do it anyway. Like what was it doing? It has no business in this conversation. But there was my inner critic telling me what to do, what not to do. You know, what I'm a grown adult with a business to grow. What is it doing? This inner critic, these doubts, what is it doing? Where does it come from? Is it that young boy that was a thin young boy that, you know, didn't make the starting running back in 6th grade or something? Was it that? Is that the part of me that doubts me? Today, even through all of my growth now? Do you see what I'm getting at? Like, make friends with your inner critic. And this is going to be a longer video than I thought because it's getting good. And identify the limiting beliefs. You could have a money script that your parents told you money doesn't grow on trees. You know, Grant Cardone tells his little daughter, like, money grows on trees. It's paper. It grows on trees. And once you start opening your mind up to these realities versus thinking money doesn't grow on trees, you know, there's such a disconnected view of wealth. And then we wonder why we struggle sometimes. There's money scripts, there's internal critics, there's just crap out in the world. There's complete and utter shit in the world. And if we start buying it and believing it and feeding it to ourselves and letting that feed our critic, you know, that's why Grant Cardone says, feed the beast, starve the doubt. Because only when we do that can we actually get the strength and to connect with that inner champion we'll be talking about. Where is the self-sabotage in your life? For me, like I told you, it's getting home, and in one of our videos I said, when I get home, I gotta avoid the TV. You know? This TV on here is just Neil Strauss being interviewed because it's part of the subject that I'm talking about now. Is a lot of this stuff is that I'm quoting was said by Neil Strauss. What I'm getting at is that I avoid the TV to, you know, just escape. Escapism is one of my self-sabotages. Escapism, avoidism, you know. In other words, and some of the popular forms of escapism are going to bars, you know, trying to drink, you know, staying up late, watching TV, playing video games. In other words, if you have something to do which is outgrow your issues and outgrow your problems and outgrow your stresses and become a more influential person, a more developed person, develop the company that you need to establish a family. If you need that, then you gotta keep editing your life and keep getting away from things that aren't gonna contribute fuel to that outcome, okay? Whatever it is. So what's your self-sabotage? Mine is TV, it's overeating, it's adult entertainment if I'm not careful, you know. It could be as simple as, it could be anything, but you get me, you gotta know what is your self-sabotage. Is it, what procrastination are you doing? We're getting ready to go into the next video. So the next one is treat doubt like a fish, okay? Here it is, treat doubt like a fish, wait for it to show itself in the ocean of your mind. And we'll pick up right here in the next film.